Hello, listeners. Thanks for tuning in again this week. This week's guest is someone who has been a big supporter of the comedy scene, especially in the St. Cloud area. Very fun person to talk to as well. So I'm excited for you guys to meet Dana Dorenflinger. Dana Dorenflinger?
Close. Doering.
So Dana, what are you doing here?
That's a good question. I wasn't.
No. Okay. So I have many questions.
Okay.
First of which, did you grow up in the St. Cloud area?
I actually grew up in Mora. I moved to St. Cloud after I graduated high school in 2014 for college. Did a year in St. Cloud. Moved to Bemidji for a semester. Hated it. And moved back to St. Cloud, and I've been back since.
You've been going to school for 10 years now?
I mean, I took a decent amount of time off because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was just wasting so much money. So I took a couple of years off, and then I was bartending, and one of my tables just randomly told me she thought I'd be good at ultrasounds, and I spiraled and applied to the tech college in St. Cloud and got in and finished my AA after 7 years, and then applied to the program and got in and did 2 years of hell for that, and now, yeah.
And now you're finally there.
Yeah, I just finished training a couple weeks ago at Mercy.
That's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
Before that, though, so you grew up in Mora. I forget, do you have brothers and sisters?
I have one brother. Yep.
You have a brother. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Older or younger?
He is older.
Older than you?
Yes.
Okay. By how much?
I'm 27 and he's 30. So 2.5 years.
Not a monster difference.
No.
The first thing I noticed about you
Okay.
was your hair.
Oh, is that where I thought you were going with that?
No, it's no, exactly the first thing I noticed. But no, my I mean, I've caught myself like with anxiety, like thinking back on like, God, I made her shake people's hand so many times with the good hand.
Mm-hmm.
And
good hand.
I feel terrible about it. But I just loved watching people's reaction as to like...
Oh, it's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a situation. So I was in the ER going to grab a patient on Sunday, and one of the other workers, I think he's on like the tech team, they do like IVs and stuff. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
I've interacted with him a couple times, just like waiting for him to do blood draws to grab the patient. I always wear jackets there because it is freezing at the hospital. And my sleeve was down and my left sleeve was like over my watch. So my hand was out and he across the ER. Do you only have one hand? I not thinking. I was like, yeah. And then he's like, what? And then I went like this and like showed. And then the nurse next to him is like, dude, you need fucking sensitivity training. And it was just like across the ER. And then he just like walked away. And I was like, oh my God. Like, oh, that was the highlight of my Sunday, though. And I haven't seen him since. So I'm not sure if he feels bad or not. But, like, it was great.
No, but, like, truthfully, though, like, the way that you talk to people, like, there's situations, especially in the comedy scene, where, like, there'll be 3 people talking and then somebody just kind of shows up and you're like, are we supposed to include them now?
Yeah.
But with you, I was like, oh, shit, fucking Dana's here. And so you just end up in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get introduced to the comedy scene?
I worked with Matt for 3 years.
Okay.
Back at Famous Dave's.
Yeah.
So he was just talking about it and I was like, oh, something to do. Like, I'll go hang out. And then I went like every Sunday when I was, or Wednesday. Oh my God, Sunday. Every Wednesday when I was like 21 to 22. And then life got busy and I couldn't go as often, but still kind of going when I can. Went last week for the first week.
Wow.
In like 2 months because I've been working Wednesdays.
Oh, right.
Yep.
But I mean, so because open mic scenes can be just horrible, like bad comedy.
Yeah.
So what kept you going? Like you seem to really enjoy being there.
The comics, depending on who it is, like you always are great to have there. If no one else is there, I'll just sit and I would talk to Chris Pitts, but he's also no longer there.
Yeah, what the fuck?
So yeah, the new bartenders aren't great.
Yeah, when I heard that Pitts wasn't gonna be there, I was like, is Keller gonna like like go into a black hole and suck in on itself.
Yeah, I'm not
Can't
sure.
imagine
We'll see.
that bar without Chris being there. It's super weird.
Yeah, last week was my first experience without him there. So
I mean,
we'll
there's always like random people that would like fill in or whatever, but for the most part, yeah, you go and Chris is there.
Yeah, but there's other comics. Like obviously I talked to Matt, I talked to DC, and just some of the other random guys, and it's kind of just been like that group. And even though like the comics are very different from when I started going, there's still some like good guys there that'll like talk to me. Or if someone creepy's talking to me, they'll come up and be like having a conversation with me, so they will leave. It's great.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, there were like 3 people that just naturally were able to like intermingle with the comics. You, Caitlin, and April. At least like to my thinking, we're like the most like integrated into it. And then obviously, you know, Kelsey comes along and she did awesome. Why never go on stage?
I have horrible anxiety and like stage fright. No, I hate public speaking. Didn't help. I took my public speaking class over Zoom. Like it was.
Oh, that's funny.
It did not help at all.
But that's what's interesting to me is like with a lot of the other people, they like get used to that scene and used to talking to people, and then eventually they're like, "Fuck it, I'll go on stage for a little bit." So yeah, so the fact that like something that is a very extroverted activity, you enjoy, but from afar.
From the sideline,
yeah.
From the bar top, yes. I also don't think I'm funny. Like, I know I can say, like, funny one-liners, but I don't think I could do, like, a full set of, like, jokes and things.
I mean...
I have really good comebacks, but I'm not funny.
That's true. But, I mean, that's... especially this day and age, like, with the TikTok comedy, it's, like, all crowd work. Like, all of the clips that people post, it's, like... It almost kind of ruins it because now... the other comics like who are doing this like day in day out are like, I don't want to do crowd work because all of these kids from LA are posting all these fucking crowd work clips. In speaking of that, right, that whole like wanting to or not, I mean wanting to is not a bad thing, but like being able to integrate yourself into pretty much any crowd is super interesting to me. Because
it's all fake. The anxiety, I just kind of show up and hope people like accept me. If nobody talks to me, I would just stand there, like just like internal panic.
So growing up, to address the good hand in the room, was this something that you were born with?
Yep.
Is there a technical term for?
Probably. Couldn't tell you what it was. It didn't even come up when we were like studying OB. Like,
really?
Yeah, I guess I don't know the term for like missing digits.
Because surprisingly, you were not the first person that I had met who has, because the other one of the other people was a photographer that I worked with, which is super interesting because you'd think you need both them hands to be able to be taking photos, especially in the wedding. Sometimes you're switching. It can be a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
But hers was that her umbilical cord had wrapped around a certain area and somehow affected the growth.
Yeah,
of those.
So we like learned about it, but we didn't learn like the technical terms for like the after effects, I guess, because there's a bunch of different things that can happen. As far as I'm aware, doctors aren't really sure what happened because they didn't do ultrasounds as often back then. I think my mom said she maybe got one with me.
Oh, wow.
Like, it wasn't a thing like it is today. But, like, the umbilical cord can wrap around it. You can also get, like, an amniotic band, which is just, like, a band in the uterus that can do that. And it can cut off limbs, like, fingers, whole arms type of thing.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think they said I had, like, an indent in my chest, so I might have just been curled up. And maybe there wasn't enough fluid for me to move. Like, there's a bunch of different things that can, like, prohibit growth.
Wow. So... being that this is something that you grew up with, do you recall when you like started to like question, or if you ever did question, how come I don't have this thing, or how come you know what I'm getting at? Like, why is it that I seem different?
I don't know if there's a definite time. I do know that I was a regular at Gillette's Children's Hospital when I was younger, just making sure everything's okay and that I was growing and developing properly.
Were there other complications with your birth?
I think both my hips were dislocated too.
Whoa!
I could be wrong. I could be making that up. But I did have to wear a hip brace.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, it was a whole basket of problems. I don't remember like a definite time, but kids are definitely mean. So probably like school age is when like the teasing and like getting made fun of started, which definitely set it in. I was really self-conscious growing up for that reason. Until like ninth grade when one of my friends would like lovingly make fun of me in like a positive light. And that's how I'm now able to joke about it myself. It's all due to her.
Yeah, and I mean, I get that big time because trauma bonding is all ironic. Like, if you can't, joking about suicide and all that shit is like pretty heavy for some people. Can quiet a room for sure.
Yeah.
But if you're around like-minded people, like it actually making fun of that shit, like develops this stronger bond with people. I feel like.
Yeah, and if it's a way that helps you cope, it's a way that helps you cope. Like,
speaking of which, what did help you cope? Because, you know, around, you know, what, like 11 to 13, things start to change usually for females. So around that age is also when things are heightened and a fucking nightmare. So I'm curious as to like, did that seem like a rough patch or was it more high school?
I'm not really sure. There was a point in my life where I was super depressed and it just wasn't going great. I felt like I had no control in my life just because all these things, and yeah, there's just a lot going on that I couldn't control. So I did turn, unfortunately, to self-harm for a while. I was thinking about it the other day, and I've been clean for over a decade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome.
And it wasn't anything like super severe, but it was enough to be like a problem. And I don't know if my parents, well, they found out because I stopped caring and like they saw my leg because
that's what I was curious about, because I remember we've talked about self-harm before, but it wasn't visible.
No, I mean, yes and no. If I wear pants, it's not, but I have scars on my legs to this day down by my ankles.
Well, so I should say at the time, I was like, I because I'm an elder emo, we were taught you go for the arms, baby.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like racking up bracelets.
Oh, God. Yeah, no, mine was my like inside of my calves. And then to quit that, not sure if it's any better, but I started smoking cigarettes socially, and then I got hooked on nicotine. And then I quit smoking cigarettes when I was like 22-ish and was hooked on e-cigs. And as of July, it's been basically a year nicotine free. Every once in a while, I'll hit like an e-cig or something when I'm like about to fall apart or I need it at work.
What are you, a fucking pussy or something, dude?
Yep. Yeah, no. So it's been rough, but
digging into, because I mean, the support that you got from your parents, because I've watched, not that this is the same, but any adversity that your child has. So my youngest brother is on the spectrum, and we learned that by the time he was 4 or 5, and watching the adjustment and kind of that heightened sense of awareness and also like a sensitivity to when you know, like if my parents notice that I have a bad day, it's like oh, what's going on, bud? Whereas with my younger brother, there was a little more like, what happened? Did somebody do something to you where you felt, were you made to feel different and things like that? Did that seem to like, which of those scenarios was more like your childhood? Like, did it seem like your parents were a little
honestly
too cautious?
I don't remember. I know. Depression. My memory is shot.
Well, how about this? Did it feel like your parents were able to be there for you in the capacity that you needed?
Yes and no. I mean, if I would have went to them 100%, they would have been there. But it was something I kept hidden, didn't want them to know about because it was, I don't know if shameful is the right word, but like.
No, yeah. I mean, a lot of the stuff, like especially as kids, we're not sure if it's actually something that's wrong with us
Mm-hmm.
or if other kids are just being shitty.
Right. Yeah.
So, like, if you bring it up to somebody else, are they going to go, well, you do kind of,
you kind of suck.
yeah, like, is it going to go that way?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you internalize all of this stuff
Mhm.
and think that, like, nobody's going to understand because it feels so unique because you don't see anybody else getting made fun of for this thing.
Right.
And so you're like, fuck, man, apparently I am,
Mhm.
too emotional or too whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously you have a more unique situation going on. Were
Mhm.
you ever like clinically diagnosed with depression or any?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Depression and anxiety. I tried a couple different variations of like antidepressants when I was 18. They worked until they didn't. I stopped taking
Doing
them.
some Zoloft?
I don't remember. I know I was on fluoxetine for a while.
Oh, okay.
But that's the only one I can remember. I tried like 3 or 4 when I was 18 and none of them worked. So I was like, this isn't worth it. And then I moved out of Zamora, fresh start, away from everything that was causing problems. You can go to college, be whoever you want to be. So I was able to fake it enough that it was fine. Like it became okay because I was busy. I was somewhere new. I could be whoever I wanted. And I was more comfortable with myself and my hand at that point. So going into college people aren't quite as mean as like unhinged kids. Kids have no filter.
Yeah.
So at least people there have like, yeah, maybe they'll look and like do a double take or whatever, but they don't blatantly like ask you like what's wrong with you like kids do. I'm like, okay.
Well, that's
Most of the time.
So did your depression and anxiety seem to stem from that, or were there other things going on as well?
I think there's other things. I'm not sure if it like stems from any one thing. I know depression does run in my family, and I was doing okay. As long as I stay busy, I can keep my mind active enough to not be depressed, which I don't think is super healthy, but it works.
Well, there's an interesting little tidbit that I found out. I was watching this documentary about this old snowboarder that had kind of like disappeared from the scene, but apparently was doing a bunch of stuff behind the scene. So he was still active. Like massive depressive disorder runs in his family, and his father committed suicide. His father committed suicide, so it like was running in the family. But when his dad had finally committed suicide, I think there was another family member that had committed suicide. So it was just way too common. And this doctor had reached out to this guy Tim, and he was like, "How do you feel? How are things going for you?" And he was like, as understanding as I am of mental health and these things, like it just doesn't apply to me for some reason. And so I don't necessarily understand suicidal thoughts and things like that. And the doctor was like, well, so what do you do? Like, how do you fill your time? He was like, snowboarding 24/7. Like if I'm not on the snow, I'm watching weather patterns. I'm doing like everything in my world revolves around finding that perfect day to ride this powder. And so working with that guy, they found that there's a pattern with people who have a passion. And so it's not necessarily that you're faking it, but so that whole like keeping busy mentality, if you're keeping busy and you're just like depression starts to creep up and you're like, I'm going to pretend it's not there. That's a different thing.
A little bit of that too.
But if you have like drive and passion, that is something that does, I mean, according to some studies, seem to curb that chemical imbalance and that lack of serotonin and things. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know about that for me specifically though, because like I will hyperfixate on one thing for like maybe 2 weeks and then it'll be something completely different. So I'm not sure if it's the same thing because at least he's like focusing solely on snowboarding and like he's very into this. I read 3 like 700-page books in like 4 or 5 days.
Whoa!
Just yeah, it was bad. And I have barely been able to read since. Like it comes and goes. It's sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I'll like paint for like a week straight and then I won't touch it again for a year. So I'm not sure. They're not great.
So that sounds more like potentially ADHD.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. I've never been tested for anything like that, but it's hard for me to focus sometimes, especially if the depression gets bad. I've bought a lot of supplies for things that I do for maybe a month and then don't touch again.
Yeah. That's dead to rights fucking ADHD,
Yeah.
man. And the bummer thing about ADHD is it can present itself with a lot of other things. So like a lot of people with bipolar disorder also have ADHD. And then when you couple those things together, so somebody who has ADHD and then has a manic episode, it's like quadrupled. So it's super, super high. That hyperfixation thing, you get all those supplies and you do all the things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this room is ADHD central, like all of the things. So you find those things, and then when they just sit there, the anxiety kind of kicks in, and then the depression kicks in as you're like, God, I fucking wasted all this money on this bullshit that I'm not even doing.
Yep. I was on that high of like reading and loving my books, and then I spent like $300 on 2 series of like, I think there's 9 books total. Haven't touched them. I mean, I've read maybe 60 to 80 pages of the first book of one of the series.
It's the I forget the technical term, but that there's no stimulation anymore.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that whole hyperfixation thing, and it really what it is like something just catches your eye. It's like a bird and shiny things. Yeah. But it activates that God damn it. The thing.
The thing?
The little thing.
In your brain?
Yeah.
Oh, I
can't think of the term. I also
like serotonin.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so it activates serotonin, dopamine, whatever. Because of that stimulating that aspect, your brain wants that for as long as it can hold on to it. But if it requires any work, then your brain starts to go, ugh.
It's a lot of effort.
I don't want to be, I'm going to watch 20 hours of YouTube videos just so I can paint a smiley face. Like, fuck this.
Yep, step by step on YouTube. Done a lot of those. There was a phase, I don't even know how I got on it, where I wanted to make like, I don't know if chainmail is the correct term because it wasn't like technical chainmail, but I bought like wire and I was making like jump rings and stuff. And stuff. I was going to make like garter belts and stuff for like when I go to festivals. No, never. I did it for like maybe 2 days. So now I just have a lot of like metal and wires in our apartment. And
you have to buy too many things.
Yeah. But I bought it all. That's the worst part.
But then if it takes too long to get all the shit and then you're like, I already spent so much time getting it all. Can't it just
be done?
Fucking
like just be there.
Do you ever see Fantasia, Mickey Mouse, and like the brooms and
a long time ago?
Yeah. So, just can't all the shit do it, or Cinderella and the birds and the mice. Like, just fucking do the thing for me. Back to the depression. Okay. Because to get to the point to where you are self-harming, there is because you're messing with your fight or flight. And it's hard to describe to people because it doesn't make sense to a lot of folks. It's such a thing now that there's a movement to create a safe version of self-harm. So rather than calling it self-harm, it's I need to fucking memorize this term, but it's basically so like in the piercing world, there's something called play piercing, where instead of putting in jewelry, we're just doing the piercing motion itself and creating that serotonin rush or release of
like endorphins and stuff.
Yeah, you're releasing endorphins, but basically, yeah, it just creates that rush or that need for some type of release. So for some people, it's like a tension thing. Others, it's that pain creates this rush and this kind of flow state.
That makes a lot of sense. I pierce my own ears quite often, and a lot of it was around that time. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, so because of this, with that notion, there's a book like all about the concept of self-harm and whether or not it's a good thing. To me, it's such a dangerous like line to toe. It's like an alcoholic being a bartender. Like,
yeah,
I get that you love your job, but also, what are you doing there?
yeah,
But I mean, it's also like a tough thing to argue because if this curbs the suicidal ideation, then is that not a coping mechanism? So it's this weird, like, maybe it would have been a good thing to know in the earlier days, and there could have been a safer way for kids to do this shit, or an alternative therapy like play piercing or like acupuncture, things like that. But yeah, because it creates that endorphin rush, and this sense of I don't know how to save myself, but for some reason, pain seems to make it feel like I am doing something.
It's having control over something. Yeah. That was the big thing for me. It was, 15, 17, whatever. You have no control. You're a kid. You live with your parents. You're going to school. You're stuck in your hometown. You can't drive yet for some, like, depending on the age. You can't leave where you are. It's one of the small things that you are able to control, unfortunately. For me, I never actually struggled with, like, the suicidal ideation. I just hated myself. Yeah, no, I didn't want to die, but I just hated who I was.
Okay.
So it was very complex, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It was just, I think, the lack of, like, control of being a kid.
Was it derived from bullying, like, based on your appendages?
Oh,
or was it, I mean, because being a teenager without any unique aspects is fucking difficult enough.
Yeah.
And it's so easy for kids to be able to single you out that if you have more than one thing for them to be able to fucking make you feel terrible about, I can't imagine.
I guess I kind of got used to the bullying, and now people would try to, like, make fun of me for my hand. I was like, that's all you have? Like, I'm doing great if the only thing you can talk shit about is me missing a hand. Like, I'm doing okay for that aspect. So
what else was happening, though?
I don't know. Like, my memory is so shot from my childhood. It's not good.
So, did you ever go to therapy?
I tried therapy, I think, twice when I was 17 or 18. The first one, my mom was in the room with me the entire time, which was weird. So I didn't answer anything truthfully because I was, like, hiding smoking cigarettes at that point. And, like, no, I've never drank. And, like, obviously. And then the second time I was by myself. And then she's like, okay, by the way, I'm leaving. So you can start again with this other person. And I was like, no.
I hate that.
I was like, okay, you said that at the end of our session. Like, you couldn't have started with that. We could have skipped this whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I talked to a mental or a behavioral health person. Was it 2 years ago when I was in the program for school? Because the program put me back on antidepressants. Yeah, it was rough. The program was insanely difficult, and I'm kind of surprised I made it through it. So I sent me spiraling, and my teacher came up to me. She's like, my son has mental health issues. He goes to see this person. Like, if you need to talk to anyone, I'm here, but also here's some good numbers of people that can help you. And I set up a meeting with, I don't know what it was, but it's by the Tech College in St. Cloud. And they do, like, weekend or week boarding for mental health.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So at, like, 7 p.m., she calls me. She's like, come in right now. And I was like, oh, shit. So Joel gets home. I'm crying. I leave. I'm like, I will be back. I think I'm okay. But, like, I'm just bawling as he gets home, and I'm walking out the door. And he's like, what the hell is happening? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm just stressed. And when I get stressed, I cry. And, like, it's just a bunch of things built up to that point. And I was just expecting to, like, set up a meeting with somebody. And she's like, nope, come in right now. And I was like, well, what do you want me to do? It's like 8:00 at night. I have school in the morning. I can't stay.
Yeah.
So.
That's the shitty thing, or one of the shitty things about mental health is like, unfortunately, the world doesn't stop
Yeah, no.
when these things are going on. And like, I've said this a million times, like people think that we're making these leaps and bounds when it comes to mental health, but people still think that it's just a case of the SADS.
Yeah, no.
Like it's so much more nuanced than people realize. And like when people try to relate and they're like, oh yeah, I had this happen. My truck, the gas was almost empty, and I was like, oh my God, I need to get to a gas station. And I was real stressed out. Like
it's not even close.
Yeah.
Like
I woke up in a cold sweat and was ready to drive my car off a bridge. Like we're not the same.
Yeah. So I guess I did have a couple of thoughts like that where like I'd be driving home from internship, driving home from Wilmer, and I'd be like, oh, that's a nice light post. Should we just like yeet into it? I obviously wouldn't because I can't afford to fix my car. But like that was one of the things holding me back is like I can't afford to fix this.
Yeah.
That's a nice light post though. Like the same light post every time. I'd be like, that's the one. If I drive into a post on purpose, it's gonna be that one.
So that's still the concept of it's not, because I've heard this a lot too, which is I don't want to commit suicide, but I wouldn't mind not being here.
Yeah, I guess it was more that way. Like if I happen to get hit by a car, but I'm not going to like try.
Yeah. If it happens, like, woo, I won the lottery.
I mean, I don't know if I'd go that far, and that really depends on the day too. So lately it's been a lot less of that. It's just been numbness.
Oh.
Yeah. And like annoying that my brain doesn't want to function correctly. But those new antidepressants should be coming soon.
The other shitty thing about meds is like it can take so fucking long until you figure out what works.
Yep.
Like I honestly don't know how many different types I've tried. But so my thing is hypermania with massive depressive disorder, generalized anxiety, and ADHD. So all those things together, like without knowing that I had all of those aspects, it was like nothing was fucking working because you think you're just tackling depression or you think you're just tackling anxiety. And it turns out I had an accoutrement of wonderful chemical imbalances to deal with.
Yeah, I think as far as like diagnoses go, I have massive depressive and generalized anxiety, but that's all I've really been tested for. And that's because I went in when I was 18 and told them like something's not right, like I need medication. And then it didn't work, so then we pretended it was fine.
So when you're in, because I feel like I'm missing a big part of your high school. It seems like there. Do you feel like, because there are a lot of people who bury that trauma because when you try to deal with it, it envelops everything and then it feels like there's no way out of it. Do you feel like you kind of shelve things because there doesn't seem to be, or when you were younger, did it seem like you were shelving things because there didn't seem to be a way to deal with it? Or that there was no positive outcome? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I don't know.
I think you do know.
What do you mean like shelving things?
So, for instance, I was a love addict. Like in high school, I was constantly telling people that I'm in love with you, and it's unlike any love I've ever felt before. And just creating these insane situations for myself to where girls were like, yeah, you tell every girl that you love them. And then I like internalizing like, oh my God, I'm this fucking weirdo who says that he loves everyone. And I didn't know what to do about it. So I just was like, we'll just pretend that that's not a thing. And I'll just keep living life as though this doesn't exist. But later on in life, I had to deal with it. So does that make more sense as to like...
It does. I don't know if I've ever done that specifically. I mean, just in high school when I started getting better mentally, I was busy again. Like obviously there's schoolwork. I was hanging out with my friends. I started a job at 17. I was managing football and managing hockey, and like we were busy, and I was just involved with a lot of things, again, to keep my brain active. So I don't know if I was pretending things weren't happening as much as just like trying to get through it and keeping my eyes on like, I'm only going to be in Mora for 2 more years. It's going to get better. Like I can just start over when I get there type of thing. We're just going to deal with it as it goes.
Same thing. So
Okay,
that is the same thing for sure.
But it didn't.
Because the concept is the same, which is I don't have the tools that I need to deal with this right now because of whatever factors may be.
Okay.
And because a lot of us say the same thing. Okay, once I do this, then I'll have room to breathe, and then either things it'll resolve itself. Maybe this is why. So I just need to do XYZ until I'm out of there, and then that will go away once I'm out of there too.
That's right.
So yes, very much the same thing.
Okay. You're right.
But it's one of those things where like until somebody presses you hard enough, you don't really realize that that's what's going on either. Like I didn't learn about all of my shit until I was 33 years old, which is way late in the game. Like I'm lucky that I'm alive and like able to talk about it now, but like just to speak to how complex it is, it's easy for me to now go, come on, you know what the fuck was going on. But only because I've been through so much of that shit that I know what it looks like. And part of the reason that I wanted to have you on, one, because I miss talking to you. 2, I knew that there was more in there.
Trauma.
Yeah. Trauma see trauma. This is the house that trauma built.
It's a beautiful house.
The foundation is just fucking shaking. Like
that's fine.
Anxiety-ridden foundation. It's funny to like when we think of high schoolers and we think like, oh, we thought our problems were bad then. Fucking look at the shit that we're dealing with now. It's like your tolerance at that age is not the same as when you're older.
Oh, definitely not. No.
So that's why everything seems so much heavier, is because you went from finger painting and like dicking around 1 year to now you're swept in with all of these. So high school, you're swept in with people who are about to become adults, and they're like picking out their careers. They're talking to counselors and looking at college, and then you go up 1 year. Maybe you make friends with seniors as a freshman, but like you're starting to get introduced to like the fact that your childhood is about to fucking end. And like, oh my God, do I know what the fuck I want to do with my life? Is our sports, is this what I'm going to do? This seems like it's all I fucking know how to do. So there's all of these really intense things. And then on top of that, boobies, right?
Jesus.
High school comes around and dudes are like, oh, chicks are pretty sweet. This is cool. And then so you have guys that are like me. I was, I think about myself as a kid and I'm just like, gross. I do not like how intense that child was. But the people who are submitted to that shit is you guys. Or you gals, I should say. So on top of all of the expectations, right? You now are like, okay, so I have to wear makeup because Tommy wants to go to the movies.
Well, luckily our makeup was like a sparkly eyeshadow and some very bad winged liner. Like it was not what it is today, thankfully, because I still can't do makeup like some of these kids are doing.
Oh my God, the video after video of like, so let's make your T-line and then contour and
no, luckily makeup was bad back then and it's fine. Didn't have to like really care about it because everything we thought looked good.
But you know what I mean though? Like there's this feeling that now it's not okay to just look like you.
Yeah.
So even though it's glitter and bad wings or whatever, there's still this notion that like I have to I have to peacock.
Yeah, I did wear a lot of like heavy eyeliner. And once I started doing that, even now, like I've gotten more comfortable with it because at work I don't always wear makeup or like I just don't care anymore.
Hell yeah.
But there was a point where like I would not go anywhere without eyeliner, mascara. That's all I usually do. Occasionally eyeshadow, but it's I don't know. I just liked how I looked more. Not that I didn't like how I looked without it, but I felt more comfortable with it.
Right.
Even though it was a little black line next to my eyeballs. Like,
But there's so much psychology behind all of that shit.
yeah.
And like with comedy, if you were to meet those people just as them, you're like, wow, either you're a lot or you have mental health issues. Like, this is a weird individual. But when we go on stage, we're showcasing this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I always say is like it's not always you, especially early on. Like a lot of comics, we're like, hey, don't pay attention to like how fucking weird of a human being I really am.
Mm-hmm.
Because this performance that I'm going to give is going to give this perception that I have control over my life or that I at least am confident in who I am. When in reality, most of us, baseline anxiety, a lot of people on the spectrum, like there's just so much. So in comparison, what I'm saying is that's our makeup.
Yeah, it's
Is
putting
being
on
able-
that show and
Yes.
like showing what you want the world to see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so when you find something that you think is cool and you see examples of other people who you're like, dude, fucking Haley from Paramore, bitch has got it going on. So if I look like her, then people are going to be like, oh my God, you look so cool.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate, this facade that we have to start putting on.
Mm-hmm.
So for girls, unfortunately, like I feel like that is so much more intense because for guys, we get to be dumb, smelly, and we'll just figure it out. You know what I mean? Like a lot of dudes, that's their mentality is like, I'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like for girls, there's this expectation that like you have to be smarter than men, especially at that point. And you're going to figure your shit out because at some point you're going to have to take care of a man.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's all these weird little things that it's like, do you not understand if teen is in your age number? So from 13 to 19, the expectations should be so fucking low.
Yeah.
But for some reason, 17 comes along and people are like, well, you better fucking
figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life.
It's
Good luck.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Like it's badonkers to me. So when people are like I was back to what I was saying, like that whole, oh, you don't even know what anxiety is until you are on I-94. You have to get to work and there's 3 feet of snow and like the whole fucking thing. But to a kid, they were just a hair away from playing on the playground and now they're having to do all this other shit.
And at that point, it could be like the worst thing they've experienced because they're young and they haven't experienced anything yet. So like as you get older and more horrible things keep happening, you're like, okay, well, I mean, I've gone through this, which was similar, so I can get through this too, instead of like it happening and you're just like, what the fuck do I do now? You've been through it. So you're able to cope and figure out how to get around it or know that you're at the capacity that you can't deal with it by yourself. So you need to get help from a friend or a professional. Like just with age, I think the experience comes and being able to determine how bad things really are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Perspective.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a huge.
Yeah.
But again, back to what you were saying. Like, how do you have perspective when you're still being ordered around by adults and
you can't make your own decisions?
Yeah, can't vote, can't drink a beer. Kids now can't buy a pack of smokes or whatever the fuck. Like, right? Because they have to be 21.
21. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's the goalpost keeps getting moved further and further away from like, what like it's this weird dichotomy of we expect you to be an adult, but also you don't know shit. Like
Mhm.
that is constantly put on younger people.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a clusterfuck.
Mhm.
And then you have, and I hate to like put words in your mouth, but I am digging. I'm
Mhm.
doing my journalist
Okay.
stuff now. You already have something that makes you feel set apart.
Mhm.
And yes, you have developed thick skin to say, that's all you've got. It's
Yeah.
still something,
Right.
right? It's not, you're not getting praise for this difference. So
I did.
really,
Yeah, in kindergarten I got a medal for perseverance because I learned how to tie my shoes. Looking back, I'm like, are you kidding? Like,
so patronizing. That's so patronizing.
yeah, but like growing up, I was so excited. I got to walk across the stage. I got a medal. I kept the medal. I'm pretty sure my parents still have the medal.
Oh, hell
But,
yeah.
Like, but looking back, I'm like, you awarded me for doing something that literally everybody has to learn how to do.
Yeah.
Like, fantastic.
Everyone in the crowd's like, yay.
Like, she tried her shoes.
Where can we get Cheerios? Tie my shoes. So you already have something that, again,
Yep.
thick as skin, it doesn't matter. It
Mhm.
still doesn't feel good. It's not a positive thing that's being
Right.
presented to you if somebody brings it up.
Mhm.
On top of that, like I was saying, this notion of presentation, and you now know that guys are looking at you in a different way,
Mhm.
and or that the potential is there,
Mhm.
and so you're like, "Fuck, what? Who? Huh? Is Tommy gonna ask me to prom, or like, do I have to? What am I doing?" So I'm trying to find where your thing is. So you start to so depression happens regardless.
Yep.
Depression, I feel like, is the thing that bleeds, or no, sorry, anxiety is the thing that bleeds into depression. So I feel like people who experience a something, it's usually anxiety first.
Mhm.
The loss of that control over that thing is then what I feel like where depression stems from. Does that make sense? Because when you're sitting in that anxiety and you remember that thing and you do that little shudder because you're like, oh my God,
Mhm.
can't believe I shoved straws up my nose and pretended to be a walrus. I don't fucking know. Some weird thing. For me, it's this fucking time that in my head, I thought it would be funny because I saw this girl eating chocolate. And I was like, when it gets to the last square, I'm going to pop it out of her hand and I'm going to eat it because that's funny. So I do it. Some kid that was older than me grabs me by the back of the neck and goes, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And I was like, "Oh, that's not a normal thing that I just did." I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And I just kind of stood there and he was like, "All right," and walked away. But I was like, I think about that forever now. And so what I mean to say is like that ruminated with me for months.
Mhm.
And enough of those things, and that's the anxiety, right? Where you overanalyze this situation. Whereas a normal person was like, that was a fucked up thing to do and my bad.
Mhm.
I just sat and thought about like, what is wrong with me? Is there something wrong with me? Does this mean that I'm not going to be able to blah, 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 blah?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to want to be friends with me anymore. That whole catastrophizing
Mhm.
aspect of anxiety. And then when you can't do anything about it, boom, it's depression.
I feel like my depression came before the anxiety though. I don't know how to explain it, but I can remember like that feeling of kind of like hopelessness long before I was anxious. Like I didn't really have issues with anxiety as far as like the public speaking stuff, which is where a lot of my anxiety stems from for this day and age, I guess. I don't know.
Currently?
Yeah, thank you. Words are hard.
Oh, trust me. I know.
Yeah. Or maybe that's just because we didn't figure out that there was anxiety until long after the depression, because that came like 2 years later. So that might just be the connection in my brain that maybe the anxiety wasn't first. Maybe it was, and I just didn't know because I was young and stupid and just.
So when you say feelings of hopelessness.
Yeah. So I guess back to high school, I didn't want to kill myself. It was back to that if it happens, it happens type of thing. But that got more common later on, which is why we're going back on antidepressants.
So, okay. When did self-harm start? How old were you?
Oh, God. Don't remember exactly, but I stopped when I was 17, maybe 14 or 15.
14 or 15? Okay.
Like young.
So you don't recall the tipping point as to the first self-harm?
No.
But there was enough of something that made you feel like you had to continue that practice?
It was addicting.
Okay.
Kind of like nicotine, where I still have, like, if I get stressed, I crave nicotine so bad. So it was that. Like, oh, something inconvenient. Okay. There are those thoughts.
Okay.
Like, it was very dramatic's not the right word, but like the smallest inconvenience would like send that thought to my brain, like it does with nicotine now, which is how we like transferred from one to the other.
So in the addiction world, it's called cross addiction.
Mm.
So like for me, I didn't smoke cigarettes for a long fucking time. And then all of the good ideas were happening at the smoke pit and at the rehab that I was at. So I was like, well, I have to fucking smoke. And then I was like, oh, smoking rules. I love this.
Yeah.
And then I was like, maybe there's a better way. And I found e-cigs and I was like, I like my cancer raspberry flavored, please. And so now I do that. But yeah, I went from being an addict alcoholic to now I'm just a nicotine addict. And
just like transferring it to maybe a lesser of two evils, but probably not.
Yeah. I mean, but the idea is that you are incapable of coping with what the world throws at you baseline with nothing. So for me, I think that's probably what happened because anxiety, all those things ramped up. And I was like, oh, I have to keep smoking then because that's it associates multiple things. So you go to have a cigarette, you're taking 3 to 5 minutes where nobody can bug you. It's like, this is me time. Like I'm stepping out, I'm stepping away from whatever I'm doing, and I'm getting an actual break from whatever that thing is.
Yep.
Plus, nicotine gives me a little bit of happy stuff. Whereas people who don't smoke just have to go and cry in a bathroom stall or something. I
do that too. It's usually the walk-in cooler, actually. But
so you started on meds when you were 17, you said? So you were just white knuckling it until then.
Yep. And then at like 18, they weren't working between the 4 or 5 we tried. So I just went off of them because like they were working. The good days were great. The bad days were worse.
Like, did you have like students and teachers that were letting you down or like turning out to not be who you thought they were? Like where does trust land for you? Like, do you feel like most of the time you can trust people, or were you being let down a lot in your younger years? Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, I feel like I'm pretty trusting, like to a fault. I'm overly trusting, and that hurts me.
Okay.
Because most people I can trust, and then it goes great. But then occasionally it's like blindly trusting somebody, and then that's when it kind of like falls back. So I've become a little more timid as I get older, but I was overly trusting growing up, I feel like.
Okay. So yes, there we go. We're getting to the things. So you're at a fragile part. Like we were talking about, your threshold is not as high. Your bar for mental pain is not as high as it is going to be in the future. it's also at a level that you've never experienced before.
Mm-hmm.
It's a totally different thing when, like there's emotional connections now,
Mm-hmm.
where you're like, oh, fuck, I put a lot into you.
Mm-hmm.
I told you a lot of things that most people don't fucking know.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're going to work at Jimmy John's and leaving me behind. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's also this need for like some type of security
Mm-hmm.
because you're free falling.
Yeah.
You're self-harming, unable to cope with the depressive episodes. And so when you have somebody who is willing to give you their time, like that's important.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
So even though this person burned you and you no longer trust them, like you still want that. You still need that connection.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense that you would, want to be trusting towards people because fuck, man, I need somebody around here. Like,
Mm-hmm.
otherwise I'm just going to sit in my room and listen to My Chemical Romance and burn my toenails.
Oh,
my God.
burn your toenails?
Oh, that's a Vietnam War tactic. Sorry.
Oh.
So it's two different things. So what things were you trying to use beyond self-harm? Was there anything else that you were trying to do? Oh, staying busy.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to say other than staying busy.
The staying busy things. That feels like, to me, when I hear like staying busy, it feels overwhelming. And like, there's so many things. How am I going to be able to do all of it? And then that depression and anxiety make it so that I don't do any of them.
Yeah, there was a point where it got really bad back at Dave's, Famous Dave's, where I would be working 5 to 6 days a week, 40-hour weeks at least, overtime like every week. I would get upset with my manager if he gave me 2 days off in a row because I would spiral. Like I could not do more than 2 days off in a row from work because at work I was busy, I was focused, I was having fun. Like I enjoy my job, serving and managing. So it was a good escape. And then I would just be at home for 2 days and like be depressed so I couldn't leave the apartment or laundry would pile up and things like that. So that's where the anxiety and depression would kind of take over. And it still kind of does now. Like Joel is a total sweetheart. He helped me with my laundry last week. But then it's kind of that backhanded thought of like, fuck, I'm going to cry.
That's okay.
Okay. Backhanded, like, I should be able to do this. Like, why can't I do my own fucking laundry? I'm 27. So it's another one of those things that's adding up to me getting back on antidepressants, trying to find something that'll help me, like, control my brain. And I've talked to him about this too. Not that part. But, like, cleaning the apartment. I can't do it for myself. But if he asks me to, or if I can do it for him, I will clean the entire apartment. Like, I will scrub the fridge. Like, no problems. But I'm unable to do the things, like, for myself sometimes when it gets bad. Shouldn't have worn makeup.
That is... I hope you know that is so relatable to so many people.
Like, it's not.
But I mean, in the sense that, like, this feeling of why can't I adult?
Yeah.
You watch so many people, like, that are able to, like, prioritize things and set schedules and, like, do this shit.
Right.
And it's like, God, why don't I have that drive to just fucking do it?
Right. It's just laundry. It takes like 30 minutes. Just do it. Like,
or dishes, dude. Oh,
yeah.
Nothing makes me feel like less of an adult than when I look at the sink and I'm like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, I have to go home and do the dishes. So. And our dishwasher's broken, so we have to like hand wash our dishes and then we run them through the dishwasher.
I hate that.
Yeah, it's great.
But yeah, it's maddening.
Yeah.
I've said that to Kim before where I go, I don't know how to explain. I wish I could think the way that you do, but my brain for some reason has this roadblock that just doesn't let me get there. Mm-hmm. And for as annoying as it is, and so this is like an adjustment that I've had to make is like, for whatever reason, I struggle to do XYZ. Yep. So if you bring it up, if you can just give me that little nudge, I'll do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
but for some reason I can't mentally get myself to go there.
Yeah. Or there's days where I will just clean the entire apartment, but I won't be able to do like my room, my laundry. We have a 2-bed, 2-bath. So we each have like our own space. We sleep in his room and everything. But like I have a bed set up in my room. I have all my clothes in my closet. So I can do all of the apartment and like the common areas, but like I won't be able to do my room. I'm like, why? What is this door that's like physically stopping me?
It's starting to make sense.
Oh gosh.
And, okay. So this is something that I've watched happen to a lot of really appearance-wise, like it looks like you can accomplish anything. Like you're such an impressive human being. Like I would talk to you all the time, and you had 3 jobs at one point, right?
2, 3. I don't know.
It seemed like you were working and going to school like constantly. So I was like,
Yeah.
how do you sleep? How do you fucking do anything?
Yeah, no. I think the most I've had at once is 2 jobs, but then like during internship, I was driving from St. Cloud to Wilmer almost every day. I was there every day, but I stayed with a friend a couple nights a week in Spicer. So I was driving at least to or from Wilmer once a day, sometimes twice. Paying to work 40 hours there in internship, and then working 20 hours at Granite City on the weekends. Like I had no free time during the program.
Yeah.
It was rough.
So it's this, I have to keep up appearances. So if I let up on this thing, then people are going to start to notice me. And that is a tough thing to deal with. How do you get to, I mean, Andy Keenan and I have talked about this a ton, which is like, he and I are so fucked up. We could be at our lowest point, but if somebody called and said like, hey, I'm having a tough time, can I talk to you? Fuck yeah. I'm on the verge of suicide, but I can, for whatever reason, all of the things that I should be telling myself, I can give all
100%.
of that to you. And it's maddening to be like, it genuinely feels like there's just this missing something. There's this block or like key. I don't know what it is. For whatever reason, I can't connect with this part to help myself.
Yeah.
It's fucking brutal, man.
Yeah, it really is. Because I'm the same way. Like, I can give advice no matter what point I'm at and, like, try to help people through whatever they're going through. But I cannot take my own advice.
Well, and some of those nights where you're fucking exhausted, you have papers to do, I would still see you at Keller. And
that was putting things off. I probably shouldn't have been there. That was avoidance.
But also, I feel like because people are excited to see you and we associate you with like supporting us, that I hope that you felt like when you were a relief to people when you were there. Does that make sense?
It does. I guess I've never thought of it like that. Like, I've always been excited to go, and I'm excited to like see you guys, but I guess I've never thought about like, oh, you're excited that I'm here too.
Yeah. Yeah, it genuinely, I mean, I know for a multitude of people. I mean, that's why people were, at least when I was still going, like constantly coming up and talking to you is like,
yeah,
we're like, oh, fuck, Dana's here. Like somebody that we know and trust is here. And even though you've heard us do these jokes a billion times, you're still showing up. But so, yeah, it was a big deal. The fact that you don't know that, well, I hope you know that now.
Yeah, well, coming to think about it, DC messaged me on Facebook a couple of weeks ago and asked where I've been, just because like I hadn't shown up because I was working.
DC Dane Cook, is that who you're talking about?
DC Slim.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
No. He's like, where have you been? Like, it's been a while. Are you good? So, but he's one of the few that I like actually talk to when I'm there now, because it's all new comics and
yeah.
The
youths.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I don't know what their like support system looks like. It's interesting. Like our class was like very intertwined in like there was a lot of, yeah, I mean, I cried on the phone with people. People called and cried on the phone with me. Like, we had this like pretty deep connection. I mean, Alex Peaches, my best fucking friend.
Mm-hmm.
I love him so much.
Mm-hmm.
But back to you.
Okay. Okay.
With your parents, did it feel like there were high expectations?
I mean, kind of.
Like if you had like grades, were they expecting all A's or
no? I was a pretty solid B student. I didn't really try in high school, and with it, I didn't really have to try in high school. It was easy. I mean, if I tried, I could have done better. There were some C's and probably failed some things, if we're being honest. I didn't care.
Back to that stimulation thing.
Yeah.
If the whatever you're trying to learn isn't stimulating you at all, then yeah, why fucking try?
Yeah, and like I got better grades in German because I cared about it, and I took 4 years of German, and then I moved away to St. Cloud and basically failed out of St. Cloud State because I was like, oh shit, this is actually hard, and I have to try, and like it was a major slap to the face, like the difference between high school and college.
Yeah,
but there was that expectation that like, oh, you graduate high school, you go to a 4-year college, so I guess that was one of them, but there weren't like crazy expectations growing up about grades.
You are told that you could do anything.
Mm-hmm.
You could do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck your. It's not even a disability. Look at you. You're doing everything.
Yeah.
Exactly the same as everybody else.
Yep. Heard that multiple times.
Yeah. So I mean, and this is one that I feel like people don't confront enough. I like when you do too much of that, people don't realize that if you don't achieve something, then you feel like you let these people down who said all these incredible things about you throughout your younger years.
Yeah.
I was told insane shit. Like there were these, so I grew up Mormon. So there were these missionaries who were like, I envision you converting thousands of people to the Mormon church. You've just got such a whatever about you, and I prayed about it, and blah blah blah. And you're like, well, fuck. So you're saying if I don't
high bar?
Yeah, man. I'm 16, and like if I don't convert thousands of people, I'm letting God down now. What the fuck? Do you realize what you're saying to me? Like, back to that whole threshold thing. Like, I'm 2 years away from supposedly. I'm a full-grown adult now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and now it's just, there's expectations that people don't realize that they're putting on you because it's under the guise of like
support,
positive reinforcement,
yep.
Right? Saying that you can do anything is different from saying, what do you want to do?
Yeah. Growing up, being told I can do whatever I want, I can do anything I put my mind to, hit hard when I wasn't sure if I could make it through the ultrasound program. Because I'm like, well, what if I can't do it? Like,
yeah,
it's hard. The program's been around for maybe 20 years, and they take 12 students a year. Yeah, maybe longer. I don't know. I obviously didn't look into the background of it. I could be wrong. But even if it's more, that makes the story worse. There's only been one program, 1 year, that they started with 12 students and graduated 12 students.
Holy smokes.
1 year. We graduated 11, so we were close, but like it's a hard program.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember you telling me about it. I didn't realize it was that fucking brutal.
Yeah.
Jesus
like,
Christ.
Our orientation was 2 hours of Jeff, and then the students, 2 students a year above us, and then I went in and talked to this year's seniors about like realistic expectations of the program. Like, oh, everyone says it's hard, but you don't realize how hard it is until you're like in it. It's rough. I failed multiple exams. I'm kind of surprised I made it through, if we're being honest, because like I failed half of my exams, but it's fine. I guess I passed my boards, so yeah, I have my physics and my OB boards done.
But yeah, that whole expectation thing.
Yeah.
So that hit. So yes. I'm starting to learn more about you.
Oh God,
this is fantastic. Because yeah, that's the other part of this show, if you want to call it a show. It's hard to come out and admit this stuff.
Yeah.
For as hard as life is already, to have to say it
Yeah.
is a completely different thing. I've had
Yeah.
multiple people have asked to be on the show because I know a lot of their story, and they're like, I spent too long burying that trauma.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm going to deal with it. And so, like, there's people
Live.
who admittedly are like, no,
Yeah.
I know all that shit, but I'm not going to deal with it.
Yeah.
It
And
is
it's one
down
thing
there.
to say it to like you and me, just like we meet up at the Keller and we're having a conversation. I'll tell you anything you want to know. Tell you stuff recorded live is a whole nother like, this is out there forever.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's super important.
Yeah.
I especially like I said, like this concept of people have how do you explain to somebody, like, when someone says you can do whatever you want, you can accomplish anything you set your mind to, what we're really saying is, like, whatever you want to do, you have the tools available to go for it.
And the support if you need it.
Yes.
Yeah. But it doesn't always come out that way.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying,
if you don't do it, you suck.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You got
like,
it.
You are the star of this movie.
Oh, jeez.
And you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
all eyes are on you without realizing that you're saying it. Like, there's, really intense verbiage that makes kids feel like the only option is to be amazing.
Yeah. And if you don't live up to that standard, it just can cause the spiral.
Yeah. And once you start talking about careers from a parent perspective, you go, oh my God, this is who they're going to be. They finally have a passion. And like, if you deviate from that, then it's like, but you said you wanted to do this thing.
Oh yeah, I changed my majors so many times. Like, I started wanting to do social work, and then I changed it to elementary education, and then in Bemidji I went back to social work, and then I dropped out of college. It was, no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
And now I'm an ultrasound tech, which is not something I even knew I could do up until 4 years ago.
I mean, all of that goes back to anxiety, depression, all of these things. Like, they are woven together. Expectation is such a massive part of why depression and anxiety can spiral, because we feel like we don't have, going back to that whole, I can't even do the fucking laundry. How am I expected to be able to accurately tell somebody what they're looking at on this sonogram?
Yeah. Ultrasound, sonogram. Yeah. Do you want to use the technical term?
Yeah. How am I'm going to tell them for sure what the fuck is going on? Like, could be life-changing. I don't fucking know.
It is. Yeah. Every exam we do, like, my biggest fear is missing something, whether it's a blood clot in the legs or like missing cancer. Like, it's
insane.
Shit ton of responsibility. And to think, like, I'm 27 and starting this field. There were girls in my class that couldn't even legally drink. Like, you have your life together, you want to know what you want to do, and you're willing to take that responsibility at 20. Like, goddamn. That it's
And again, but this was your dream.
Yeah, for my 4-year dream. Yep. It was a spiral dream.
By the time you're about to finish and you're like, oh, fuck, I didn't realize how much responsibility was associated with this career. Yeah, man, I can't imagine, like,
it's more than just looking at, like, happy babies. And, yeah,
you're not just going penis, vagina, penis,
it's
vagina.
A boy.
Or what did ours said? It's either a turtle or a hamburger.
Yep. That would be it. Yes. Sonographers like their signs.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of little, like, nickname signs for different things.
Yeah.
In the ultrasound world.
So if, like, someone has cancer, you're like, you have a chicken nugget.
No. Also, we don't tell them anything. Thank God.
Oh, that's right.
So we send our images to a radiologist, and then they give the report. But they can only report on what we see. So it goes back to, like, fuck, what if I miss something? So I take a lot of video clips. Because I'm like, you want to see it? You can see it live. Here you go. Yeah.
There's still a little part that I'm missing.
Oh, okay.
Which is the catalyst for you to say, I need help? There's repeated behavior, but at one of those times, this thing that was giving you release, either you sought it out or somebody was like, hey, what's with all the cool tattoos that you have on your leg? You know what I mean? Like, so was it you who said, I need help, or did somebody notice that you were struggling?
There was a point where I stopped wearing long pants because it was 90 degrees and it was summer. So my parents saw, and my mom was more than willing to be like, hey, if you need anything, like, let's talk about this. We're going to talk about this. But if it gets bad again, like, come to me, we'll go there. And that's when, like, those 2 therapy sessions tried to happen. I had the support of my friends who knew, just a couple of them did. And then an at the time boyfriend knew. But it kind of just happened that it switched from self-harm to smoking, because I started like socially smoking with friends at parties and stuff. The like 4 that I went to in high school. Yeah. And then it switched over to I had cigarettes, so I could do that, and it was in my brain. It didn't smell, so it was like less visible. Yeah, it was, dumb 17-year-old things. I'm like, oh, this is easier to hide than these cuts in the summer. So it kind of transitioned into that. And then I stopped caring and went home smelling like cigarettes like a week before my 18th birthday and got yelled at for that. But yeah.
Another thing that happens, especially in people who try medications, and it makes them feel different, so they go off the medication and they're fine now. So this notion that, why, you know what, that was 2 months ago. I don't even feel that thing anymore. So what's the point in addressing it or bringing it back up? Because there is, for one, shame, because you're like, ugh, I feel yucky even thinking about the fact that I was crying about this or upset about whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Now that it's gone, let's just deal with it today. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Maybe I'll isolate and sit in the corner of my room and cry while listening to One Direction. But it sounds like with staying busy, with being able to have enough space between an event and what you're currently doing, it was easy to kind of not deal with certain things.
Yeah, I've gotten really good at, I guess, not dealing with things. I don't know. I guess that goes back to the shelving.
Yes. You're at IKEA, babe.
Yeah, there's some things where if I just couldn't handle it, I would hope it goes away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's that in itself is a defense mechanism. The forgetting about the thing, that's a huge PTSD thing. So I'm convinced that there's some meaty, like, you watched your dad murder your gym teacher or some shit.
No, not the...
Where are the bodies, Steve? Is your dad's name Steve?
It is not.
Damn it. Would have been so excited. But no, that's a what's it called? It's a trauma defense. Which is your subconscious survival instincts kick in and go, whoa, 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 whoa. If we think about this thing, then we don't eat, we don't drink water, we don't do anything. So we need to just
pretend it didn't.
Somebody erase that fucking thing real quick.
Yeah.
But because you can't erase it, it just gets stuffed down into this hole. And then you look in this hole and you're like, Jesus Christ, what is all this stuff?
Yeah.
And then somebody's like, that time you forgot to flush the toilet. Woo. And then it creeps up and you're like, motherfucker. All of this is making sense now as to like why you have a small thing that will then like just sweep on through like a fucking fog, is because you never properly learned how to deal with the things.
Yeah. Probably.
So as of right now, like with the things that we've discussed and like what it seems to be that you're recognizing, what is it that you want to change?
About what?
Well, I think you know.
Like about my hand? Oh, okay. It was like nothing? I don't know.
No, moving forward, moving past the hen. This is point number 2 now.
Okay. I missed that transition.
Sorry. Sometimes my transitions are not so smooth. No, I mean, where you're at currently right now with you are graduated from school,
Mm-hmm.
you're in your career, but you're still having these roadblocks.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that you're wanting to change for yourself?
Other than like my mental health for the better.
Oh, no.
Okay.
So let's encompass it in just the mental health arena right now.
Okay.
Because once you address that, dealing with the other things, there's a difference between going into an isolation mode and being annoyed with something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm annoyed with traffic. I'm annoyed with having to vacuum or whatever the fucking thing is. Like, those are, to whatever degree, normal ways of dealing with things, which I could not do for a very long time. I mean, there's still plenty of things that, like, my brain is just like, you dumb guy. You're going to lay in bed, eat Doritos, and watch anime instead of doing whatever this is supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
But for you, like, it seems like there's some pretty heavy things that are kind of pulling at you.
Yeah.
And so what are your mental health goals right now?
The first one is already in motion. That doctor's meeting I have on Monday to, first of all, get like a new primary care within my company because Centric Care is no longer included in my health insurance.
Oh.
Yeah, super fun. Not that I really had a primary there either, but so that, and just talk to her about things and hopefully get medication that works. A nice little miracle pill that fixes everything would be great, but that's probably not going to happen. But just something that will help me be able to do those stupid, simple tasks at home and just be able to focus on more than one thing over a day and like not hyperfixate on it for like the week at a time would be nice, which I don't know if I'll be able to fix that, if that's a thing you can fix.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
It feels impossible right now.
Well, I just mean like in general, I don't understand like that side of it really.
You don't understand how to not hyperfixate on things?
For like a week at a time and then be done with it. Yeah. How to like not burn myself out.
Oh, you're talking about like the buying painting supplies and shit like that?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. If it's like something that's treatable or not, I don't know.
So ADHD people were prone to like, or we're susceptible to shenanigans. Is the only way I can think of describing
okay.
it. I know there's a technical term for it, but we're susceptible to influence.
Mm-hmm.
So like if somebody says some random shit. So if you have nothing going on and somebody's like, you have a week off or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody came up to you and it hit you in just the right way and they're like, dude, let's fucking go to Vegas. It's $50 for...
Oh, I would definitely go to Vegas. I'm very impulsive.
Exactly. So because of that, so that's... it's the same thing. It's a stimulation thing. It's goes back to that wouldn't it be funny if kind of scenario. Wouldn't it be crazy if we could do it? Let's fucking do it. What's stopping us?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the rational part of your brain is like, well, no.
Mm-hmm.
You have money is an important thing to have.
Right.
So why don't you just fucking chill out, walk the cat. I don't know if you have a cat or not.
We do, but he doesn't go outside much.
Well, do you have a dog?
No.
Well, walk the cat. But that goes back to that stimulation thing.
Yeah.
All of the things that you could be doing are super non-stimulating.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like people think that after sobriety, it's like, oh, I'm going to, be a messiah or like I'm going to be able to do all these incredible things. It's like, no, sobriety just makes you able to deal with how boring life is as a sober person. So same thing with like the over hyperfixating on cool shit is like going, you know what? My life needs to be boring for a little bit. I need to do this boring thing, that boring thing. It's, a big part of mental health is learning how to be bored without it engulfing you. Yeah. It's like when you're in a quiet room and you start to hear that roar of like silence.
Yeah, I don't like silence right now. I'm at the point where like I always have background noise on.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, dude, you have ADHD. For sure.
Maybe. I
We're
don't know.
the same. Okay? And your boy is diagnosed. So.
Okay.
So yes, is what I'm trying to say is it's this way of being able to break that shit down into simple forms so that it doesn't seem like it's this kind of all or nothing thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, unfortunately our brains are just wired to like need some type of like woo
Mm-hmm.
little we're like coke addicts. Just need a little bump.
Okay.
But please continue.
Oh yeah, okay. It's like I've lost where we were at for a second there. Yeah, just figure out that and not like burn myself out in the process, and just being able to do the things I need to do at home and be okay with like not working for a week straight. 'Cause I'll have a week off every other week with my hours at the hospital, which pros and cons, but just becoming comfortable not having to do something at every like waking minute would be nice.
I'm trying not to do it as much, even though I've been doing it the entire episode. But it seems like you need to accept how awesome you are, which feels weird.
Yeah.
But you are a rad individual. You are a supportive individual. You have so much to offer to people, just as you, without having to be ultrasound technician, radiologist, brain surgeon, any of that shit. You know what I mean? Like in the realm of like when people are saying you could be anything you want to be,
Mm-hmm.
without having to adhere to that, you already have all of these things to offer people, which is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, people were happy when you show. And I mean, I'm sure they still are when you show up at the Keller, because they know, like I said, you don't have to be there.
Mm-hmm.
You already know all of our jokes. You already
Yeah.
know all of these things. So you're just being there just to be supportive, which is fucking rad. Likewise, I'm sure Joel is over the moon about how like attentive you are and like willing to help and all of these things. So baseline, you're just a good person, which is very helpful and like a hot commodity, as they say. So getting to a place to where you can accept like, I'm a good person, I have a lot to offer without having to go over the top
Mm-hmm.
is a it's not fun to try to get to that place.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, for as weird and imposter syndrome, have you heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're doing a lot of things. I'm saying a lot of things, and it seems like you don't feel like you're there to like wherever that is supposed to be. There's a lot of like, okay, if I can do this,
Mm-hmm. Just like one more step.
Yeah.
And we'll get there. Yeah.
so every place that you get to, it's like, do I deserve to be here? Like
Mhm.
I'm just kind of going through the motions. Imposter syndrome is something that can really drag you down. I'm a piercer. I work at a tattoo shop, like one of the coolest fucking jobs. I do not deserve to be there. Like, I live in this house. Whoa. I look like I should live in a trailer park. Like, I do not look like I deserve or should be in any of the places that I'm in. But I put positive energy out into the world, even though I'm not like an energy guy.
Mm-hmm.
I put this shit out there and I am very open because it's important. Sincerity is like the most important thing I think in the world. If you can sincerely connect with somebody and sincerely let them know that they're a good person or that they're valued or whatever, like it's huge. So I do that as often as possible. So if what I have now is due to the fact that I genuinely want people to feel valued, and that's what I do every day of my life, then I accept it. And I'm fucking psyched that I'm here. This is rad. So, but again, old guy. Took a long time to get here. All these things are like easy to say now.
Yeah. In hindsight.
With medication, It's not just medication. I mean, I know you were joking when you said like a happy pill fixes everything.
Yeah.
The pill gets you to, it quiets that noise so that you can start doing the work
Yeah.
so that you can start.
Do it for yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. It's just that first step.
And maybe I'm one of those people that I'm probably going to have to be on meds in perpetuity. Is that the right word? Forever. And that's fine.
Mhm.
I have a chemical imbalance that unfortunately, I guess not even unfortunately, it's just a different form of learning.
Right.
I just have to have these little things to help me focus, to help me be on as close to a level playing field as possible with everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that level playing field is just a boring place to be.
Mm-hmm.
Boredom is such a fucking nightmare to deal with.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you feel it. You can't have more than 2 days off.
It's gotten better, but yes, that was a point.
Yeah. So, I mean, what are we going to do? We're going to accept ourselves. Okay.
Okay.
Because you're smart. You're supportive. You put positive things out into the world. And doggone it, you deserve to have nice things brought back at you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I hope for all of the best things for you. The best outcomes, I should say. You're not going to become a queen or like anything crazy.
I don't think I would want that. Too many public appearances.
It's fair. Do you have anything else you'd like to say to the listeners? Anything about school, maybe? People who are going through school and having a hard time? Was there anything that you found that helped you get through that?
Don't be afraid to like ask your classmates for help or your teachers. I annoyed the crap out of one of my teachers just because I was struggling mentally and like wasn't doing great on tests and stuff. Like I said, I failed a lot of exams. But we found out at the end of first semester that I do better on my exams if I'm not sitting in the room doing it with everyone. I have really bad test anxiety.
Oh, interesting.
I fly through my boards. Like I think you get 3 hours. I did like an hour 15 for both of them. Like I went so fast. Because it doesn't give me time to second guess my brain. Like we're just gonna go impulsive. I know it. If I don't, I don't. It worked a lot better on the boards. I don't know why. I'm not mad though. Those are expensive. So finding out things that work and like not being afraid to ask if you can do what works for you within reason. If you need something specific to help you succeed, one of our girls got a standing desk because she focuses better when she's standing. That's something that the school is able to provide for her. Do you
have drugs on you?
Did you?
My dogs only bark that way because somebody has drugs on.
No, unfortunately I don't. Yeah, so it's just being aware or like being willing to ask for that help, which is a hard first step. Meeting with your classmates because you're all going through that same shit. Like they're doing the exact same stuff you are. Maybe they're struggling just as much, or maybe they have a way that they figured out that works for them to learn it. So we were doing flashcards. We were doing like group meetings of like studying and Zoom studying, like, because everyone learns differently. So maybe I had to change my entire learning, like the way I learned to be able to get through the program because I'm very hands-on learning. But for like the textbooks and stuff, it was a lot of like book work, which is not how I learn. So I had to learn by like memorization and repeating things and like, yeah. I made Quizlets for the boards and I went through them all 700 questions until I had everyone memorized. Like,
wow.
Yeah, it was rough. I'm in the process of doing that again now for my vascular boards. It's brutal.
You're what? Vascular.
Vascular, yeah.
Well, fuck, man. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
I know it's not easy, but
it's okay. I only cried once.
Which is good.
Yeah. I guess.
It's usually a cry.
That's good.
Whether it's the guest or me.
Oh.
So, I mean in a good way.
Yeah.
We could talk about this later. But yeah, fucking thank you for doing this.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad we were finally able to make it happen.
Yeah.
Oops.
Could you not fucking goddamn
That's what you get. You invited me here.
Yes. Thank you for doing this. Much appreciated. You are wonderful.
Oh, you're sweet.
And to the listeners, be well to yourselves.